Greetings, Star Wars fans, whether you live on the deadly planet of Ossus, or if you're just setting up your Jedi school on Yavin 4, maybe you're looking for the Lost Valley of the Jedi. My name is John Edward Lee. I'm here with another universe-expanding books and toys 90s series. Now, last time we did the Zahn trilogy, so the next logical step was going to be the Dark Empire series. Now, I believe that is kind of just not enough for one episode, so I'm also putting the Dark Forces series on top of this as well. I always like to start out talking about what's going on in Star Wars collecting. Not a lot to collect this week, new announcements, but really the fall or winter is when that stuff starts trickling out. Now, the third wave of the High Republic series did start up in the past couple weeks. So this is the second wave of the series of books, YA novels, children's novels, comics, manga that make up the bigger picture. So this is basically the second chapter of that among many books, including a new adult novel, a new middle school age novel, which don't let that fool you, these are actually pretty decent books. And then, of course, the first issue of the High Republic new arc that is going to kick it off for them as well. I'm sure IDW will have some stuff to show us as well. We're here to talk about Dark Empire. Dark Empire was a series of comics that came out in the early 90s. It takes place about a year after the Heir to the Empire series. It was the first real series of comics that was sort of a sequel to the movies, and it did a very good job. Luke is a little overpowered in this, way more than he really gets in the movies ever, but I think that's kind of cool. It adds a superhero comic book element to it. And of course, the Dave Dorman art on the covers are amazing. The basic plot is that Luke starts turning to the dark side a little bit, contemplating his father and why he would turn, which he eventually does, and terrorizes the galaxy as a new Dark Jedi. They didn't say Sith yet. That was sort of an invention that was only used for Darth Vader at the time. He was the Dark Lord of the Sith. No one else was a Sith. When Phantom Menace came out, that changed everything. Han and Leia have some adventures, but the big bad guy in this series was the Emperor's clones. And you can see they come out younger, they age really fast, and to the older Emperor, and then he has to jump from clone to clone to clone to stay alive, which he's been doing since Return of the Jedi when he was thrown down the shaft. Leia comes to save her brother from the dark side and convince him to turn back to the light, and they defeat the Emperor temporarily. There was another series, Dark Empire 2. One of the cool things about both these series is it was how we knew Boba Fett was still alive and had survived the Sarlacc pit. He hadn't shown up until then since Return of the Jedi. I was in a video store reading that, and when I saw that he had survived, I gasped so loud that everyone turned and looked at me. But it was a defining moment for me as a Star Wars fan and a fan of the comics and books. The basic plot of the second one is Luke is trying to find other Force users. He finds some Dark Jedi, people who have survived the Purge, who want to join his cause. He finds this tribe of people scavengers living on the edges of society that are all Force sensitive. And if you know anything about Luke in the 90s, whenever he meets a young lady and there might be a possibility that something could happen, it's a death sentence. She doesn't last very long. In the 90s, they just didn't seem to think that Luke needed a girlfriend. That's okay. Eventually marries Mara Jade. That's pretty cool. There was a third short series. I don't think this is as good. It was basically the Emperor's plot to put his consciousness into Anakin Solo, who Leia's pregnant with at the time. Now, one of the cool things Dark Horse did at the time was, and they did it for 15 years, is for a big series, they would release a handbook, sometimes it'd be issue 0, issue 1/2. They did it for a lot of their series, X-Wing, Rogue Squadron, Tales of the Jedi, Legacy, Dawn of the Jedi. They all had one of these. So this is a great addition to my library. In the 90s, of course, West End Games was still popular, so they made a source book for that with some great Dave Dorman art like the comics, all your stats on how to live properly in the Dark Empire universe. Dave Dorman was so great because he could capture the likeness of the actors so well and really gave it a cinematic experience. The best books, comics, video games, they all had his art all over the place. Now, of course, they released some stuff for Dark Empire that wasn't just comics. They had released a series of action figures as part of the expanded universe. We saw some of these last time in the Heir to the Empire. There is Jedi Leia with a red lightsaber because the red blue, green, that stuff didn't get locked into evil and good until Attack of the Clones. There is the Emperor himself, young clone. He's got a blue lightsaber, in fact. Here is Dark Jedi, my favorite action figure of Luke. Dark Jedi Luke with a red lightsaber and his cool, like almost very comic booky outfit. Now they also brought in an Imperial Sentinel. I'm not terribly impressed with this figure, but it is cool. It really does showcase the art and how it translates to an action figure well. Years later, when they did the comic packs, they could not neglect Dark Empire. It sort of was one of the things that started it all. There is Luke, and a little bit older clone of the Emperor, again with that blue lightsaber. Very, very cool set. Now, we talked about Dark Empire. We talked about Dave Dorman, who did the art, who was very influential in the 90s. Like I said, he just understood Star Wars so well. And could translate exactly what storytellers are telling into something really cool, really memorable. Very, very cool artist. One of my favorites. So, Dark Forces was a video game that came out in the mid-90s that had a series that went on well past the 90s. Dark Forces was a first-person shooter like Wolfenstein or Duke Nukem. Doom is along those lines, but basically it followed Kyle Katarn. In the first level, he single-handedly goes and finds the Death Star plans, brings them to the Rebellion, unlike Rogue One that took a whole crew and the entire Rebellion to do. Of course, that level's really cool. You can go through Star Destroyers, things like that. But the series went on into a sequel called Jedi Knight, and so these sort of spread over those. Now, these are not comic books or graphic novels. They're novellas that have illustrations. And there's about 20 illustrations per book. They're very cool, very Star Warsy, sort of something new and different as far as storytelling. Dark Horse did some of these for Aliens as well. The final installment was one done by Dave Dorman himself, and of course that art is incredible. And I can't state it enough. The guy just knows how to do Star Wars really well and sort of help define Star Wars from beyond that point. So very influential to me as a fan, very influential to Star Wars as a whole. So that's what I have for you. Dark Empire, Dark Forces, the video game. Thank you so much for joining me. Please, if you're enjoying these, remember to like, subscribe, share. I do want to give away some sort of gifts that I've collected over the years that are sort of extra things that are still pretty cool, but I need a lot more people because it's not as fun to do it over 20 people as it is over 100. So please get the word out. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about it with you guys specifically because I feel like you have a thirst for this knowledge, and it's important storytelling. I like the new canon just as much, but I don't want these stories to ever die. Again, thank you so much. This has been Universe Expanding Books and Toys. My name is John Edward Lee, and remember that the Force will be with you, always.